You're listening to the Skylight Books podcast. We're an independent, general interest bookstore putting great reads in the hands of people in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. Hosted by resident Skylighters, we're here to bring you new and exciting author conversations, group reads, and bookseller chats. Happy listening.
Hello, my beautiful listeners, and welcome to Skylit. This is the Skylight Books podcast, and I'm your host, Lance Morgan. Today we have Liam Campbell to talk about the new edition of his magazine, Elska. Liam Campbell is editor-in-chief of Elska Magazine, a gay photography and culture mag, sharing local boys and local stories from around the world. Liam, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me.
No, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. I'm a big fan of Elska. It's such a great magazine that we carry in our store. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm all right. It's not too hot, which is fortunate because I've had to turn the air conditioner off to not make too much noise. So,
No, I mean, that is fortunate because I heard that there's a heat wave on your side, right? You're in New York right now.
yeah, like 2 days ago it was 35. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's a lot. But
It's a
today is
lot.
like it's I don't know, it's over 90 Fahrenheit for sure, but today's not too bad.
No, I hope we're not jinxing it, and you're to leave the podcast and it's just sweltering out there. Crossing fingers.
Yeah.
Crossing fingers.
Yeah,
Liam, you have a reading prepared for us today?
I do. Yes, I do.
Perfect. I'll let you take it away.
Okay, so the story I've chosen, it's from the darker Bangladesh edition of Elska. Yeah, I think just to preface this, none of the people I feature in Elska are professional models or celebrities or anything, and they're not professional writers either. So, not everything necessarily is super well written or even that interesting, but it should be a reflection of the person's real voice and, feel like you actually met this person and talking to them. So anyway, this is by a guy called Salmon. And it's translated from Bangla, so I'm reading the English version here. Okay. It was midnight. I'd been up late studying, and finally I decided to go to sleep. I put my reading away, plugged my mobile phone into charge, and crawled into my bed. But just as I closed my eyes, I heard the sound of an incoming message. I picked up my mobile, looked at the screen, and saw the word hi written there. It was from a man over 50 years old. Ever since I came to realize my homosexuality, I also found that I had a strong attraction to older men. I don't know why. I didn't delay and answered his message with great respect. I don't know if he was a quiet man or if it was because of his age or culture, but he was not very emotional. Me, on the other hand, I was young, a teenager really, and I was extremely emotional. I would ask him things that he'd never have asked me, things that didn't need to be or should not be said. But this man understood that I was young, and he surely realized that my behavior was normal for boys of my age. Being a doctor, he understood me even more so, and he took the time to answer my questions or simply humor me. He was from Dallas, USA. There's a big time difference between us, yet we managed our schedules so that we talked often, almost as if we lived in the same country. Every day we talked about many things. We talked about family, what he did all day, what's the plan for tomorrow, everything you can imagine. I should have been very frustrated with the long distance, but he gave me courage. Later, during a low time in my life when I didn't have a job, he was with me. He was always with me. He supported me in every part of my life, and from him I learned to love. 2 years passed. We were still talking over the phone and planning to meet many times, but it just never happened. Then suddenly, without warning, he sent me a message. Where are you? Can you meet now? I was so excited and completely in shock. I couldn't understand what was going on. My heart rate was rising. Tears of joy were falling. This person who talked to me for 2 years was in my city today, all the way from the USA. I didn't hesitate to go out and meet him. Together we did so much. We had many memorable moments. But after a week, he went back again, and our relationship went back to the way it was before. We spent another year talking over the phone, planning many times to meet again, but he did not come. Then suddenly there was no news from him. He did not talk to me anymore. I miss him badly. He taught me how to love, but he didn't teach me how to forget. Still, I'm waiting for my love. He will come and he will love. That's that.
No, that's wow. No, that I mean after reading many of them in the in just many of the publications, it's just these stories are so. I feel like you undersold it in your introduction to this. They're interesting. They're very interesting. They're very real
No,
for these people.
it is very, it's, I think it's not terribly sensational, is what I should say. But yeah, it's very interesting and it's very, I guess, typical of the experiences I heard about when I was in Bangladesh, because
Hmm.
it's not an easy place to be gay,
Hmm.
and it's therefore very difficult to meet people. And often the only way or the safest way is to meet with a foreign visitor. And it's a very unequal power dynamic.
Hmm.
And I think this shows that a lot of what great love he felt for this man he didn't know but got to meet once. And then the man just kind of lost interest. Maybe, I don't know. I imagine he has online
Yeah.
friends all over the world,
Hmm.
and but even so, for this man, for Salman, it was a very real kind of love. And um, I don't know if he's just an optimistic chap or what, but he certainly holds on to this idea that he will come. And I remember him telling me, after this, he says, I've written this story about him. Do you think maybe he'll find it? Do they sell this in Dallas? Maybe he'll see it. It's like, well, I have no idea, but you never know, right?
Never know. I hope so. Dallas peeps listening, find him, make it work, do your magic.
Yeah.
um no, I first want to talk about, because I don't want to. There's so much to talk about with Elska, and I'm pronouncing Elska right?
Oh
I'm
yeah,
doing
that's right.
no. I was just like the entire time. I was like, what if I've been pronouncing it wrong the entire time before this? That would have been, honestly, that would have been a good zinger on me at the end if you were just like, well, you pronounced it wrong this entire episode.
No, I
um,
suppose sometimes people think it's an acronym, but no, it's just a
it's
word.
just
It
no.
means love in Icelandic. So
I mean, I love that. I love that. I love love. Love is love. Happy Pride.
yes.
The first thing I want to talk about is your newest one, which takes place in Montreal, right?
Mm.
You went out there, you shot some beautiful portraits and had some great essays. How was that trip for you?
Montreal was really quite crazy, I would say.
Really?
Um, I've been to Montreal a long time ago when I was at university. My degree is French and politics, and we had to
Hmm.
do a study abroad or work abroad, spend a period of time abroad program in a French-speaking place, and I chose Montreal just to be different, just to be weird, where everyone else went to France or Switzerland. Anyway, but yeah, I love it. I think it's got the most, the biggest kind of gay village in all of North
Wow.
America.
Wow.
Um, yeah, but also, it helps to speak French to get into it, which I know a lot of people that they don't like Montreal, and then you find out, well, they only speak English, and it puts your opportunities like in half, or even worse than half, because it seems like all the cultural stuff happens in French. Anyway, I go on a tangent, but
No, that's a good essay. I would read that.
but basically, yeah, I mean, I made actual two editions out of it, two separate volumes,
Mhm.
because people were just so open and so kind of bold, and you know, in general, the way I approach Elska is to just seek people out or let them
Mhm.
come to me, and if they're interested to do a shoot, they do a shoot, and then it's up to them if they want to, just kind of do some shots in the neighborhood and a couple at home, or if they want to take all the clothes off and do a nude shoot as part of it as well. And in Montreal, everyone wanted to do both. And in these nude shoots, pretty much everyone wanted to like be completely nude and show
Mm-hmm.
everything. And some of
Mm-hmm.
them were even being quite sex positive, I suppose I could say, you know, kind of getting interested in themselves, even though I was right there in a, I don't know, if not even in an exhibitionistic way, but in a kind of, I don't know, I'm I'm enjoying myself kind of way. It was, you know, I can be a bit, despite my job, I can be a bit shy and reserved sometimes, and it was like really pulling me out of that shell. So
Wow.
it was fun for sure.
No, I mean that one surprise because I feel like um to be there with these people, I would have guessed you were like extroverted and just like really that. Could you talk about that? Like your like experience behind the camera with all of these with all these people who are being very open and very, vulnerable with you in a way. I feel like you're also being vulnerable with them behind the camera.
Yeah, I suppose I am. I mean, but the truth is, I just sort of perform an extroverted persona,
Hmm.
or rather, I try to kind of match what people's mood is, and in a way to make them more comfortable. I think in a social situation, particularly really if it's a group of people, I have a really difficult time speaking or even kind of standing up straight. Like I really cower. With one person I'm not too bad, so it helps that I'm shooting one or maybe a couple. But yeah, I just try to mirror them, and I think of it like like a performance. Like, okay, I'm doing a job, and
Hmm.
it's super exhausting to be extroverted, honestly. But you know the shoot lasts a few hours, and then I'm exhausted and I take a break. Some people are super gregarious and I can't handle it. Like I really can't handle it. But usually
No.
the chill vibe
Mhm.
helps them relax, so I don't have to like go over the top.
No, I mean, the idea of you having an alter ego to do this is, I mean, I would maybe you should, invest into that, like have a full alter ego, your own name, kind of like a Sasha Fierce. Like
Oh
who
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
your persona like that when you're behind the camera? No, I
Well,
mean, but oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. I was just going to say I don't really like doing that performance. It feels very much not me. Um,
Hmm.
but you know, it's like I've just got to get it done, and then when it's over, I almost feel like I've stepped out of my body for a while, and it's done, and I'm like, oh, what happened there? It's like quite a blur, and then later, sometimes a month, 2 months later, I'm editing the
Hmm.
photos, and I'm like, oh gosh, I don't really remember any of this.
No, I mean but that must be fun to look back to and be like have this evidence of this work too. That sometimes you're like, in the moment I was overwhelmed, but now I get to like look at experience it again from this perspective. That must be fun.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, and when I look at the photos, because I'm not really staging people so much as
Hmm.
just kind of chatting, walking, moving about, and snapping as we go. So a lot of the candid shots really can tell me a story later,
Hmm.
that maybe I've forgotten. There was a guy in Montreal, Max, and just something about the energy, I felt very crushy towards him. And I was
Hmm.
super awkward, like really, I was awkward.
Hmm.
And I sort of thought that probably I was making him awkward. And then later, I'm looking at the photos and there's like a lot of laughter. And I thought, oh, wait, no, he was having a good time. It
That's
wasn't
good.
awkward. And then he
Hmm.
told me later, like, I'm sorry that you were too busy to come to lunch. And I thought, oh yeah, he did invite me out to lunch, and I completely like missed out on that. But yeah, it's
um
just such a blur sometimes.
no, I mean, I could only imagine. um Could you talk about the birth of Elska, like the inception of the idea and the start?
Yeah, well, back when I was at school, like in high school, I was very into photography, particularly
Mm-hmm.
fashion and that sort of thing. And I wanted to do that as a job, but I guess I was sort of afraid. I didn't understand like how you could possibly make money doing art. So I, abandoned all that and tried to get a real job.
You've been there.
Yeah, but I ended up becoming a teacher, school teacher, and
Mm-hmm.
then I decided to take a career break and I became a flight attendant. And when I was in this job, going all over the world, I thought I need to get back into photography. Because, for example, I'd be in Kuwait or I don't know, Kenya, and I would think, I got to take pictures. Why, I might never come here again.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to take pictures. But I
Yeah.
just wasn't really interested in taking snaps of
Mm-hmm.
scenery, of landscapes. I was focusing on people, doing that street photography, kind of hiding and taking pictures of people without them knowing it. And then I thought, well, why don't I talk to some people and ask them, can I take your photo? So what ended up happening is every time I would land somewhere and
Mm-hmm.
have, 2, 3 days layover, whatever it was, as soon as I'd land, I'd turn on those gay apps,
Mm-hmm.
message a few people and say, hey, do you want to do a photo shoot? And surprisingly, a lot of times people said, yeah, sure. So I started just doing it like that.
Yeah.
And eventually I had the idea of like, well, maybe I could make a book of this or, and I landed on this concept of like a periodical where I could make
Mm-hmm.
little books, each from a different city and featuring just those guys that I happened to meet there.
No, talk about community and the culture through that way through the apps too. What a more wholesome way to use the apps than what most people do, right? Very like
Yeah, well,
no,
yeah,
like the fact that a lot of people would be, open to do this and be like so the way you described it was it seemed very like chill and very very friendly and just that kind of community seems great. It just seems so
yeah.
refreshing to hear.
I should say at the same time I was doing a bit of uh, photography work and fashion, etc.
Mhm.
And so I had like a little bit of a portfolio. So
Yeah.
it's not like I would message someone and just, without evidence that I was a real photographer, they could see like my website, my portfolio, and like, so that definitely helps a bit because I
Right.
can't tell you how often I hear from guys and they'll say, oh yeah, tons of people ask me to take their photo from these apps. And, I don't know who they are. And I'm like, oh, bloody hell, be careful.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, be careful. If you're hearing this out there, don't accept it from anyone. If you see Leon,
Yes,
that's
yes.
great.
Well, yeah,
But
check
don't
them out. Check them
check
out.
them out.
Google their
Check them out.
name. If
Yes.
they're Googleable, then they're probably all right. Well,
Well,
depending what comes up.
hopefully.
Yeah.
No, but still, that's just it's refreshing to hear a story from that come from like you know like sites where it's usually just for hooking up, but like it's also like community comes out of it. How you've shot in how many cities? I want to say 14, but I might be underselling.
Oh God, no, I'm much more than that. Much more than that.
Much
Um, I'm right now editing what will be the 38th.
38th. Wow, I was really underselling. I'm so sorry. I
No
and I was like,
worries.
I counted the other day too, and I was like, I counted what we um love selling it in the store. A lot of especially it's so funny whenever I see uh like queer people come into the store and they're like, I want to see something like a little they were like, I want to see something sexy, but something also like different than what I've seen before and new. And then I show them Elska and they're very like, wow, this is from different cities around the world. They're like, I've been here, I love this city. Or someone just the other day got the Brazil one because they were like, this is one of my favorite cities I've ever traveled to. And this is so, they're like, they actually flip through and they, at one point, they're like, I know this person. I've actually met this person there.
Oh dear.
Right. Listen, it's, they seemed happy about it. They seemed happy about it.
Good.
No, it's such a great magazine. Like, how, having traveled to all these cities doing this now, what do you feel like, more world experience in like traveling the world? I mean, you said you were a flight attendant before, but this must feel different to you, right?
Yeah, I'm not very frightful, I guess. I just sort of expect that things will work out. Like I don't really worry about anything.
Right.
Sometimes things have been a bit difficult, like in Morocco. I did one in Casablanca, and that was quite frightening, to be honest.
Oh.
I know a lot of people love it as a holiday destination, but when I'm there, like for my purposes, interviewing and photographing, people from LGBTQ community, I'm doing something very much I shouldn't be doing and could cause danger. And so, it was difficult because I thought this is maybe important in some way, to show this community, to show that the people here exist. And in particular, there's a reputation of Morocco as this kind of gay paradise where you can very easily hook up with some very sexy people. And it's true, but like what's the perspective of the people who actually live there? And it's not so great. And it wasn't great for me trying to navigate this, and talk to these people. And I had some issues where someone ended up threatening me, and I didn't like it at all. I didn't have a good time at all. Some places I have a wonderful time, and sometimes I don't. But I just sort of I try not to worry about it too much. It's also that if I go somewhere without too much preparation, then I'm more able to gain a perspective that comes from what people tell me, the people I meet, right? So
Right.
especially, in a very in a culture that's very different to my own, I don't want to have too many ideas that I'm like explaining the culture. I'd rather like just share what people tell me and then pass that on rather than my judgment or my summation. But, you know, so if I just kind of go somewhere open and not worry about things, then
No,
I
I
think it
mean,
produces a most real result.
no, that's gorgeous. The way you said that was just so, wow, paints a beautiful picture of, your own travels there. Um, do you have what's some fun stories though? Some unexpected things that you've discovered there, some some just times where you were just like, wow, this was something that I will never forget, or just full of joy.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think some of the best come from Reykjavik, which was the third issue. Um, it's a great tale of a guy, David, and he wanted to shoot at the edge of this fjord, the Wales Fjord, it's called, Kvalsfjordur, I think. Anyway, and he wanted to do it naked as well, right? But it's very cold,
Yeah.
as you might imagine, and very,
Yeah.
very windy. So we had this like situation. We leave the car running, and then he'd come out and do like, literally like 3 photos, and then, huddle into the blanket and into the car, wait a moment, go out again, keep doing it over and over and over. And but he was like completely up for it, poor guy. I'm fully clothed, but he's like completely starkers except for his boots. And another guy in Iceland, we did some hiking, and there's Seljavatnalaug. It's a very secluded outdoor heated swimming pool that you have to hike sort of 20 minutes to get to in
Oh,
a
wow.
valley between these mountains. that was quite amazing, just to kind of do a few shots of him in the water, and then me and I had an assistant with me on that trip. We just like put all our equipment down, undressed, joined him for a swim, and that's amazing when you can kind of take time to enjoy the experience of travel and not just be like work, work, work.
Yeah. Do you were saying you had an assistant, so do you travel alone mostly, or do you have some people with you? Do you have a team that comes out with you sometimes?
I mostly do it alone, and I think the first eight, the first 8 issues maybe, I'd
Mm-hmm.
always had an assistant. And then what happened is I realized, one, that I could do it myself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the help is nice, but it's not necessary. And also
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes, these guys who, like I mentioned before, are not professional models or actors or anything like that, they felt kind of intimidated when there's multiple people there.
Mm-hmm. I can
And
imagine.
especially when we do shoots that are inside their home, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people would say, can the assistant wait outside, please? Wait in the corridor in the street, because it's just too nerve-wracking to have.
Yeah.
It's a very vulnerable experience to do a photo shoot, particularly at home with less clothes on. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just realized, well, maybe it'd be better to not have this entourage that just intimidates in a way.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can. Yeah, the the intimidation. I'm like putting myself in that perspective now too, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's too many. Like the less people would be, the better for me if I were in that
Yeah.
perspective too. Completely understand that. Can you talk about the dichotomy of shooting these people in a lot of vulnerable, even though like they're a lot of them sound like they're open for it, but like shooting them from that perspective, and then like talking with them and writing about them for their essays or their own voices in the magazine.
Phrase it a different way. I zoned
That's
out for a
fair.
minute.
That's
Sorry.
fair. No, no. The dichotomy between like shooting them on camera versus interviewing them or having them write, like is it sounds like
Mm.
both vulnerable things, but like in two different ways there.
Yeah, well, it kind of depends. Usually I ask for them, to write a story and to send it to me
Mm-hmm.
before we meet.
Mm-hmm.
Then I get a little idea of who they are, or
Mm-hmm.
just a sense of the energy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also it's nice sometimes to meet someone without knowing anything about them. I've quite often shot people that I have no idea what they look like.
Mm-hmm.
No idea even, like, how old they are, anything really, just kind of the name and the, phone number, so we know when to meet.
Right.
And then just discovering as we go. But I don't like to have plans. I don't like to
Mm-hmm.
create a story. If I have an expectation that someone is, I don't know, going to be very serious, or maybe very I don't know, erotic,
Mm-hmm.
because they wrote a story that's, talking about a night of passion,
Mm-hmm.
then and then maybe I'm tainting what the shoot can be. Just because he writes a
Mm-hmm.
certain way doesn't mean the mood of the day when we're together is going to reflect that.
Right.
So actually, I've kind of gone to a place of I'm still asking people to send me the story before, but I don't really read them,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of disrespectful in a way. But to them, like, what, you didn't even read it? Like, I'll read it later, but I just want to get to know you as if it's completely kind of blind date situation, and
Right.
see how it goes. I mean, sometimes it does create a problem. Like, again, to talk about this Montreal issue, uh, there was a guy in there who, in the shoot, he was fair. I mean, to be fair, just see, I'm getting muddled up now. I'm like a little bit, not prudish, but anyway, he masturbated, right?
Oh
Which is
wow.
not like a common experience for me, but he did. And you
Mm-hmm.
sort of, if someone ever gets an erection in a shoot, it's a moment where I think you have to pause and say, are you aware that that's happened? Do you want to like take a break and talk about something very distracting, or
Mm-hmm.
you want me to continue? And in this case, he was like, yeah, go on. And then he had a moment. And that's lovely, that's nice, and it's amazing that he shared that with not just me and my camera, but like everyone who reads this.
Mm-hmm.
But then I went to read his story, and he wrote his story about his son, his baby son, and also about the death of his father. And I thought, well, I know sex is a part of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that they don't exactly that they necessarily conflict, but I was very uncomfortable of like, how do I print these photos alongside this story? So I ended up just kind of not publishing as many of the most risque photos in the print magazine. And then I have a bonus magazine called Elska Extra that
Mm-hmm.
subscribers can get. And I put most of
Ooh.
those in there. And then I put the story kind of paired with some photos that were very playful and
Mm-hmm.
and he was part of the scene. He was in a playground, so I paired the photos with there. Then we had
Mm-hmm.
some pages of kind of separation before he got into
And
that next stage.
right.
But yeah,
No.
I mean, I think if I'd read his story beforehand, I would have said, like, absolutely, you need to stop doing that. You need to relax. You need to put your underwear back on. But I would have missed an interesting moment, shall we say?
I mean,
Yeah.
that what a I feel like that's what a weird dichotomy. Now I'll ask you afterwards so I could like look for that one too. I'm interested in that story now, the essay, because to see those two must be,
Mm.
just the two sides of that interesting.
Yeah, I would, but also I'm like slightly worried you're gonna remove it from the shelf and wrap it in plastic and put it next to the
Oh no, listen,
18 only curtain or something.
if we no, we don't do that.
It's discreet, nobody knows.
We have we sell a lot of things at Skylight Books, a lot of really good things and a lot of risque things, but it's all art. It's all beautiful art, and I mean I love it. um I want to ask, this is a selfish me one, because my favorite one city that you did was Atlanta, because I loved
Mm.
looking, there were so many just different gorgeous black bodies in there that I got to see in the city. I love Atlanta. I used to live very close, and it's like, it's this very, it's known as like a very black queer space, and a lot of like people know that there. I mean, there are others, but like that, Atlanta's known for that. And so it was fun and just very refreshing to see these black bodies shot the way he did it, and they were beautifully shot, in a way that I feel like a lot of black models are they kind of get, not the same treatment when they're on
Mhm.
camera a lot of the times. How was that experience shooting Atlanta?
I mean, Atlanta is such a special place. It really
Mm-hmm.
is. From what people told me, and I'm happy to repeat, people tell me it's the black gay capital of America,
It
maybe
is.
of the world, really,
Yeah.
because I've had so many experiences, for example, in Lisbon,
Mm-hmm.
Portugal, where there's quite a large black community,
Mm-hmm.
mainly like coming from Angola and Mozambique and former Portuguese colonies in Africa.
Right.
But these communities tend to be poorer,
Mm-hmm.
more conservative, more religious. And so queer men in those communities are no way willing to be featured in something so public.
Right.
So a lot of parts of the world where you have gay, queer, black men, they're unwilling, they're
Mhm.
afraid, they're in danger to participate in something like this. But what I found in Atlanta is that community really had the confidence and the support to like be free and be out there and show themselves. And so that's an amazing thing about Atlanta, and
Mhm.
I don't know anywhere else that has that um, strong and powerful of an LGBTQ community.
No, I mean it features so well. Even the stories that there was something very special about the stories that were told in there too, and very um unique to Atlanta. When I read them, I was like, yeah, this is very this is very Atlanta culture. Very there was one about oh, it's escaping me now. It's early. I haven't had my coffee yet. But I just remember there were so many where there was this was the first one I read and still my favorite one. This is Atlanta. I mean, I love them all, but Atlanta's what attracted me to it because seeing Atlanta there, I was like, what is this magazine? Last year when I discovered it, I was like, what is this magazine? It's why is someone featuring Atlanta like this? And I read it and I was like, oh my God, this was gorgeous. I have to have this. And I just like slowly started collecting more and more of them. But I don't know, there were so many stories in there that I was like, yeah, this is just sounds right. This sounds like the place to, be Black and queer and open and, just so many, and the people that I saw in there were just gorgeous in like a free and them expressive way. It just felt very, and they felt very, one thing too about it was they felt very comfortable. You could see it in
Yeah.
their pictures. They felt very safe, which, for Black queer people anywhere in the world, to just like to feel safe in that open, and just felt very
Yeah.
refreshing. Yeah, it was a very
I mean,
refreshing thing.
I think another thing that was really special about it to me is it broke a lot of stereotypes that
Hmm.
um, non-Black people maybe have about Black men. Um, I can speak more from British perspective, and there's kind of in terms of gay Black men, there's an idea maybe they're um, tough, thuggish, that they have very large penises, that they're always tops.
Hmm.
And, you know, when you look at the Atlanta issue, some of them have got small dicks, some of them have got big ones, some of them are, appear to be very kind of gentle and
Hmm.
sweet. And, you know, it's not fitting like what you might see in pornography in terms of how a
Hmm.
Black man is depicted. And the same goes for, on the other hand, of Asian men and the sort of stereotypes you get there.
Yes.
When I've done issues in Manila
Hmm.
or Seoul, you break a lot of the same stereotypes that come from the more mainstream, I don't
Yeah.
know what you want to call it,
Right.
community and the media that we've gotten used to. So
And the
it's nice to show
fetishization.
people, yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
Nice to show people as they actually are. And I think I do it with a kind of sincerity that, I'm not like playing a game or trying to be political. I'm just like telling the truth and saying, see, these are like, this is what it's really like.
Yeah. No, and I felt that in that issue, especially. It just, I mean, obviously, there's an obvious reason why I connected with it as a Black queer man myself. I get it makes sense, but just like, no, it felt, and I feel like yes, when other people see themselves expressed in this way through a magazine, like I've sold it um to Asian men, to brown men, to Black men, um, to and non-binary people, and people who just have not want to see themselves expressed, and ways that they haven't seen before behind and on camera, and their stories told, and connect to the stories of these people as well. I don't know, it's just it's so nice to see something like that, something reach people like that. It's great. Sadly, we have to wrap up, but the last thing I want to ask you, are there any cities, that you've just the obvious question I bet you get all the time, but like cities that like would be like, if you got to pick any cities yourself tomorrow, like, and they're all a yes no matter what, which cities would you go to
Oh,
go shoot?
um, hmm. Well, I think I'd quite like to do. Well, gosh, it is a really hard question, isn't it? I mean, there's some places that I think just kind of maybe not possible. Like, I'd quite like to go to Tahiti or something, and have an excuse to go to a beach holiday. But I don't know, like, if the population is enough to make that work. But
I don't know, maybe.
yeah, I don't know. I think what I would like to maybe do soon is a place that's very like renowned as kind of a global queer, um, I don't know, paradise,
Mhm.
Mecca. I don't know. San Francisco. I'm nearly at, what did I say, 38 issues, and no San Francisco yet. I think it needs to
Ah,
be done. Yeah.
I mean, that'd be a
So
fun
I hope I
city.
can do that. It's just so expensive, like hotels and that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to cope with it, but that's probably why I've not done it yet. But that's one like I'd really love to do.
Well, San Francisco, I bet that one too would be, you would get so many like people offering to be on camera. That might be like a 6 issue.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how to handle that either, but
That one
I
might have
always
to
just
be.
say, well, everywhere I go, I give myself a week or so and, shoot as much as I can, like,
Mhm.
3 shoots a day. And then when it's full, that's it. I've got to leave. And, whoever I've got, that's who I've got.
Mhm. No, that's
But
fair.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
No, I mean, I hope that for you. That would be, yeah, I can only imagine that'd be such a amazing issue to see. And the stories that would come with that too in San Francisco. That's a I'm sold. I'm excited for that to hit the shelves. So hopefully soon, crossing fingers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like give too much away, but I recently, just a few weeks ago, I shot Paris, which will be coming in the
Ooh,
autumn. And something really different about that is the participants are on the older side. I'd
ooh,
say at least a third are over 40.
oh,
And that's also nice to have like a representation in that way of
yes.
older
Hmm.
men, and not that 40 is that old, but you know what I mean. I, I've
Yeah,
had I've had from 18 to 75, but kind of most people tend to be around 30. So it's
yeah.
nice to get different types of people.
No, I mean well, I'm excited to see that one too. Yeah, I feel like, especially in the gay male community, you don't see a lot of people over, yeah, 40 really, over
Mm.
on on camera this way, models and
Yeah,
um
maybe not over 25 really.
I was gonna say 35, but yeah, you're right. No, I mean, that sounds, I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see it, and listeners, I hope you are too. Um, Liam, this has been great. This has been so much fun to talk to you about this.
Yeah, thank you
am
very
a,
much.
no, I'm a fan of your work, and it's it's just great talking to you about it and getting more of a perspective on it. Um, do you have anything you would like to say to the independent bookstore community as a whole, or just readers and fans?
Well, I would just say regarding independent bookshops, I owe them a lot really, because um, I never had any interest from mainstream shops,
Mhm.
um, the big chains, and just a shop like Skylight being willing to put it on the shelf and let people discover it. Um, it means a lot to me, and I hope that people will go in. I always say to people like, yeah, you can buy it on the website, but see what shop, check the website for the list of shops where they sell it, and go there. Maybe you discover some other great stuff.
Yeah. I mean, thank you. It's a pleasure carrying it. And like, I mean, this is I got to discover it through to Skylight Books. And I mean, I can only imagine the countless others who strolled into their local
Yeah,
independent stores and
and
found
I
it.
mean, this is probably not maybe something I shouldn't say, but I know a lot of people can't necessarily afford to buy a print mag,
Mm-hmm.
and they can go in the shop if they're careful with it. They can discover it. They can have a look at it and
Mm-hmm.
have access to it in that way. And I think that's important as well, that there are these
Yeah.
physical items that people can reach, and maybe they only buy one, or maybe they just go and have a leaf through now and again and hope to one day grab one. But it's giving a certain visibility, and showing people that there's people like them and they've got a place, and having a physical space where they can access it
Yeah.
is a wonderful thing.
No, and that's I yeah, I love that too. I love that. I do. If you're in there and you just want to stop by and leaf through some copies of it, please come by
Yeah,
Skylight
just
Books.
just wash your hands. No
Please,
fingerprints.
please, 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 please. We have hand sanitizer at the door.
Oh yeah, you must do,
Yeah,
yeah.
please. No, thank you, Liam. This has been
Thank
such a
you.
pleasure. Liam Campbell, his magazine, Elska, the new edition Montreal is out now. But yeah, go through these many cities and see these, different men on in here, read their stories. It's great. Thank you so much to my
Thank you.
listeners. Listeners, if you're new, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Please, please, please check out our previous episodes. We have some really interesting and cool people like Liam that you can discover. And, thank you for checking us out. If you've been listening, thank you for listening. Thank you for coming back. We appreciate you and we love you all so much. Have a beautiful and amazing rest of your day. Do something nice for yourself and, come back soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.